Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, even if you're further afield from us, broadcasting from the UK. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you today for another House of PMO session. If you're not already familiar with House of PMO virtual sessions, we do like to chat. So that means opening up your chat window. If you can see on your toolbar, make sure you open that. Say hello. It's always good to see where people are from, and we keep an eye on what's going on in the chat throughout as well. This is going to be a busy session, but hopefully in the right place. It's PMO Self-Assessment and all about learning how to do your own. We've got a mix of stuff. I will be showing you the tool that we actually use here at House of PMO as well. So there is I suppose a demo really at the end, but a little bit more than a demo, just getting you familiar with the things that we'll be talking about as we go through this session. So like I said, it's quite a busy one today. So, that's lovely. It's lovely that people are interested in their own development. That's what it's all about. If you don't care about your career, you can't expel anybody else to. So that's a good thing. So I'm going to let people just pop along in, and while we're doing that, I'll just stick up the agenda page so you can see what we're going to be doing over the next hour. We're trying to finish up in an hour's time, which will be 1 p.m. UK time. And so today we're going to be looking at PMO self-assessment. So it's what people actually get out of a self-assessment. Let's talk about that first of all, to actually understand, why people are doing them and what they personally get out of things like this. There's also, how the self-assessment works for you. We'll then look at where you put most of your energy. So get you thinking about that aspect of it. And then do you want to have a go? I'm going to show you how you can do that. So quite a lot to get through, and we've still got people coming in, but if you just arrive in, just make sure you've got your chat window up, and make sure you as we go along, if you want to put anything in there, even just commenting on what's going on, or what you think about it, what your opinion is, all that kind of good stuff just gets people connected. And you never know, you might make a new friend today. So again, if you're using Zoom and you've not got your full name on there, that you can rename yourself. It'd be really good if you've got your full name on there, so people can actually see who you are. Okay, so shall we crack on? We've got quite a lot to do. So what do people get out of self-assessment? I think before we actually start, just to make sure everybody's on the same page, what is a self-assessment? In my thinking about this, and we have been thinking about this for a number of years with House of PMO, because it's all based around the PMO Competency Framework. That's how you can do a self-assessment in PMO, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. But a self-assessment is about the self-evaluation. It's thinking about the kind of competencies, the skills and knowledge and behaviours that you use within your working role. Not only today, but also helps you to think about where you might want to develop more in the future, where you might want to get stronger in some areas, or to assess some gaps that you might have. So it's essentially it's doing that self-assessment. And ultimately, it is about performance. It is related to the how you perform in a role. And obviously we're all interested in how we perform in our day-to-day work. But the thing that's been quite unique for a lot of people since we put out the competency framework, the PMO competency framework, is for the first time it's allowed them to do a self-evaluation, a self-assessment against PMO and PMO competencies. Previously, you might have already looked into doing self-assessments against some of the project management frameworks that are out there. But again, there's always a slight difference, because we're not project managers. Or are we project managers? Is there some people on here that are project managers? But by and large, people that are working in PMO do have different competencies and different skills, knowledge and behaviours, and how we use those in our work is very different to delivering projects or programs. So this is what we're talking about, is doing a self-assessment against the PMO Competency Framework. So if that's what you're wanting to listen to, you're in the right place. So let's have a look then. So why do people do them? From an individual point of view, why people do them is for a number of reasons. Actually, it's not always related to, your boss saying that you need to fill something out like this because you've got a performance evaluation coming up, and they want to be able to sit down and look at what you've been doing and setting goals for the future. Often, we said it's a self-evaluation, and it's about people choosing to do these kind of self-assessments for themselves, regardless of whether your employer is interested in doing self-assessments. You yourself, should be interested in developing yourself. So, you can see there that there's a number of reasons why people are doing them. And I think sometimes it's some of them get overlooked. So, for example, the one around confidence. Actually, what we've found since the PMO Competency Framework was released is that people have been, for the first time, allowed them to put themselves against a standard. And if you're not familiar with the Competency Framework, we will go into a little bit more detail about it. But if you're not familiar with it, it is something that's been put together by PMO people for PMO people. So everything that's in there is come from the jobs that people are doing, and the kind of roles that they're performing. So it gives people some confidence that for the first time they've been able to kind of benchmark themselves against something, which can give people a lot of confidence that actually, I do know quite a bit about this PMO stuff, because before you'd never really been able to compare, other than, if you're lucky enough to work in a big PMO in your business, there's probably a lot of PMO people you can compare yourself to. But if you're in a smaller organization and working in a smaller PMO, you don't get that option. So there's obviously things there that, is about being motivated to learn more, or, it helps to actually select training rather than just doing it willy-nilly, or, just doing training that your organization's asked you to do, or, it gives you, a better feel for, what it is that you can be doing. But this is from an individual point of view, but you can think about it from your organization's point of view, is that they use self-assessments to understand what capability they've got within their business. And what we've found, and certainly from a lot of the corporate members that have been signing up to House of PMO, is that at the moment their PMO people can only do an assessment against the project management framework, which actually is not giving the organization enough information about the capability that they do have in PMO. So that's why that's been particularly of interest. Obviously, I've just touched on one, which is about assessing performance levels of staff and PMOs, and it is being used in performance evaluations, and I think that leads to that more meaningful conversation for both employer and employee. And also, obviously, it helps with development goals. So again, organizations are getting switched onto it more and more, because they can quite clearly see, before, what kind of training is going to be good for our PMO. Actually, with the self-assessment tool, from a corporate point of view, they're able to see their team view. It'll make more sense when I show you in a slide a little bit further on. But what does all of this kind of mean for you? Well, actually, it means that you have to be taking more ownership. And this is an interesting thing that I've always, in my previous background, worked around PMO recruitment. And one of the things that I've always said to people in careers advice and things like that, is that you do have to take more ownership, because no job is for life anymore. We may feel like we've struck gold in the place that we're working in and want to work there forevermore, but actually it doesn't really work like that in life. And taking more ownership in your own career, your own PMO profession, is going to pay off dividends as you move on throughout your career in PMO. The other thing here is about what it also means to you, is that you have to think quite a lot about work and about your experience. And again, that's not something that a lot of people do and don't really give time to. And I've always found this quite interesting, that it's only at certain points in your career you think, oh, I wish I'd just done this. I wish I'd already got this kind of stuff already there in a self-assessment. That means that if I am going to go for a new job or promotion or ask for a pay rise, it's all there. I can show it. I can see, I can actually show how I've done over time as well. And again, those kind of things are, it does take time to do them, but there are dividends for putting that time aside. So let's have a look at what that kind of breaks down into. So there's a commitment there, and the commitment not only time-wise to actually do these things, but you've got to have an interest in your role. And I wonder how many people here on this session see themselves, that PMO really is my career. It's my, it's not just a job, it's a career. It might not be for life, but it's certainly going to be for a long time. And it's that commitment to yourself, that really is needed, to get the best out of doing your self-assessments. Doing a self-assessment also means a lot around conversation, because again, you're not just doing these self-assessments in vacuum. It is about being able to, yes, understand, but it also involves a lot of communication in terms of, with peers, with your managers, all that kind of stuff, because it will open up certain questions and, you seeking out advice and help from other places and all that kind of good stuff. So there's a communication aspect to it. There's obviously a prep to it, and this is what we're just going to be showing you a little bit more about today is, well, what is that preparation, and how self-reflection actually works in reality. And again, just thinking that when you come to do a self-assessment, most people think that it's just okay, so here's a list of things and I'm just going to tick some boxes against them. It's a lot more than that. And it's it's the preparation where, a bit like a project, they say it's all in the plan. It feels very much similar to a self-assessment. And the other thing is that with any assessment, you have to have the evidence to back up what it is that you're choosing to score yourself on. So again, it's not just something that you can just say, yeah, it feels like I should be around this. Actually, there's a hard evidence bit to it. But again, it doesn't just come from sitting down and doing your self-assessment. These are things that you should be picking up throughout your job and throughout the weeks and months that you're actually working. So again, that'll come a little bit clearer. So we've said that the competency framework is what forms the basis of a self-assessment. And if you're not already familiar with it, published in last year, and you can see that these are the core competencies. There's 24 competencies across 4 different domains. Apologies if you've already you've got the book and you've been using it and all of that kind of good stuff, but there's probably some people here that are not totally familiar with it. But essentially, a competency framework allows you to look at what competencies are required in your role. And we were once told that it's really difficult to do a PMO competency framework because PMOs are different, aren't they? Every PMO is different, but actually it can be done, and we'll show you exactly how it works and why you'll be able to do a self-assessment, even though your PMO might be very different to somebody else's. But essentially, what you're doing is a self-assessment against a particular role. That's how it's been designed. However, you can also do a self-assessment against the entire competency framework. So it gives people those choices. It also allows people to do a self-assessment against different contexts. So what you're seeing on screen there now is what we consider to be the 4 main different contexts that you would see in PMO. Obviously, project, program, portfolio, and centre of excellence. Now, you're probably looking at something like this and saying, well, actually, I work across both projects and program, or I do a bit of program and I'm doing, just about to do some portfolio stuff. The great thing about doing a self-assessment is that you can do an assessment against any or all of them. So it doesn't really matter which one if you're straddling different areas, you can certainly do that. So there's 4 different contexts and there's 4 different roles, and the roles are administrator, analyst, manager, and director. So again, you can do an assessment against a different role as well. There's also, you'll see there's what's called proficiency levels. And the way that these are laid out are to give you an idea about what kinds of tasks and activities are happening at the different levels. And how you do a self-assessment is essentially you start to read through what are some of the proficiencies and what are some of the, what they're called indicators. So those bullet points that you see are to give you an example of what you would see at a particular level. So if you look at the foundation one, in order to be able to assess yourself that, yeah, you know, I'm very much at that foundational level, you'll be pretty much ticking off all of those indicators. However, there is that option, that flexibility, that there will be other things that you're doing within your day-to-day job, but it's not there, but should be. And that's where the flexibility comes in. Indicators are, as it just says, it's an indication. You know, they're not set in stone and that's all that you should be doing. It's to give you an idea about what kind of things you'll be doing at a foundational level. There's a lot more insights to that actually within the competency framework book itself, but essentially that's how it works. So you're going to be doing a self-assessment to see what kind of leveling you're coming out at, yeah, and against the different competencies within the competency framework. But not only that, you're also going to be looking at a self-assessment against some of the knowledge, skills and behaviours that also go along with doing the role. So competencies are about how competent you are at doing the job. But we know that, you know, just carrying out a task or activity involves a lot more than just competency. It involves different knowledge. It includes different skills that you'll be utilizing. Sometimes when you're carrying out a task, you might be using 3 or 4 or 5 different skills in order to be able to perform that task. And then, of course, we know that behaviors very much make a difference to anybody in their role. You know, you can choose to be a proactive team player, all that kind of good stuff. And again, these are the kind of things that wrap around how we do our job. So those are the things in the competency framework that essentially you are self-assessing against. So any questions, anything that's popped up there that you know, you're not familiar with or unsure about, just please make sure you drop it into chat and we'll pick those up. So how does a PMO self-assessment work for you then? Right, so basically what you're doing is something that's going to be helping in your career. So we said doing a self-assessment against the standards, always good to know externally, you know, where you're benchmarking yourself to. We talked about, you know, the being able to identify skills gaps, which again can help you in terms of your action planning, your training, your self-development, that you're actually targeting it in the right place. It chooses how, you know, how to close those gaps, in other words. You're benchmarking yourself against the standards, and you can also find out what it is that you need for the next level up. So this is for people that are thinking about, you know, the career ladder. I'm currently working as a project admin and wanting to go up to a PMO analyst. You know, where's the gap? Where do I need to be concentrating my efforts? You know, what's the difference in expectations around the competencies and the knowledge and the skills and behaviours? But there's also more. So it's about understanding and learning what competent looks like for your role. Again, we'd never really had that comparison before the competency framework came along. The other good thing it is for many people, and why it'll probably be something that sits on the bookshelf, you know, as well as being a tool to do a self-assessment, is that it's got a lot of stuff in there about, you know, when we talk about certain competencies, we look at the terminology that's involved, or what are the tools and the frameworks that go along with that kind of competencies. There's a lot in there that's more than just being able to do the self-assessment. So it's quite a useful reference tool like that as well. Talked about performance reviews, and of course negotiations of salaries or, you know, promotions or anything like that. It's always good to have the evidence, and this will certainly you know, go a long way to help you with that. And we've also said it actually does help you to create your CV or resume. So if you're somewhere at the moment where, you know, you're thinking about moving on, or you're trying to get a new role, actually it's useful to look at, there's a role profiles for each one of those standard roles in the back, but it also, by looking through it, will give you some ideas about what kind of competencies you should be covering in your CV as well. So that's another session for another day. But if anybody's interested in that kind of thing, we'll certainly be running something like that in the near future. So a competency assessment, when you do them in the system that we're using, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that system shortly, this at a very high level is what you're getting when we talk about the gaps and where you are. So this is an individual who's completed their self-assessment as a PMO manager working at a portfolio level. And very quickly, you know, we all like a bit of visuals. We should do anyways, PMO people. You can see very quickly where, you know, where the skills and where the level of competency is and what's actually required for that particular role. So very quickly you can see, you know, obviously doing well in areas better than what's required, and a bit of you know, a few gaps. For example, if you're looking at this one, there's some gaps there around perhaps assurance at a portfolio level, some capacity management stuff as well. The interesting thing with these assessments as well is that we know that obviously with PMO roles, they vary from organisation to organisation. So we know that for some of them, some of these competencies you will not be assessing yourself against because your organisation doesn't do those things, or PMO doesn't do those kind of things, which is fine. It's absolutely fine. But I think what the tool actually shows you is that this is a standard that's out there in the marketplace. And these are some areas that if you were to be moving on in your career, perhaps outside your current role, it is also showing you that, you know, perhaps I need to be thinking about, you know, how I keep up to date with knowledge in these particular areas, for example. Just as a side one, I know we're all talking about individual self-assessments, but what our tool also allows corporate members to do is look at the team as a whole. And this is just you know, these are all the samples, just a couple of people for the portfolio level, 2 PMO analysts working in the portfolio level. It allows that organisation to see that actually we've got some gaps in terms of our portfolio offering. And, you know, from a PMO point of view, there's going to be some upskilling required. And yeah, these are the, you know, looking at the full range of competencies that these people have done an assessment against. Yes, CZ, we will be sharing the slides, and the video will be going out a lot more wider, you know, across the PMO. So you will certainly be getting a follow-up after this session. Okay, so just from a key point then, so the roles for that get covered in a competency framework are these 4. Now you're probably looking at this and thinking, well, actually I'm kind of in between some of these, or we're not called that. Doesn't really matter what the naming is, because again, we know there's wonderful, fabulous names for people that are working in PMOs today. Generally what you're doing is looking at the role profiles and making an educated guess that I probably sit more between kind of a PMO analyst and a bit of a PMO manager, aka a project lead or a PMO lead. You know, I think that's generally what we've found along the way, that the PMO lead kind of sits somewhere in between. So you might do a self-assessment against both levels. And again, we can show you how to do that. Rather than, we've got a question, is it possible to see the team spider for all the roles combined rather than just for the 4 roles? You can see it for everybody. Yeah, you've got different cuts basically of data that you can see. Yeah, so the key points, so we've talked about there's different contexts that you can do an assessment against. You can also look at progression. So the way that you can do your self-assessment is against 4 different things. So for example, you will, and again, I'm going to show you this in reality, but it allows you to do a self-assessment. Again, say if I'm a PMO administrator working at a project level, I can do a self-assessment against that today. That's what I'm doing today. However, you know, my next kind of career step might be as a PMO administrator moving into more of a project or program setting. So I might choose to do that as my career step 1. You can choose 2, which might be for PMO administrator, that I want to become a PMO analyst. And again, I might want to do that at program level. And aspirationally, I'd love to be a PMO manager in the future. And I can do a self-assessment against that right now. But again, it's an aspirational goal. So you can see all of that in a self-assessment, again, available to members when they join the House of PMO. But you can buy the book and you can do a self-assessment on paper. Just you know, it's just obviously you're not going to get some inner insights. You get the indicators, which again have come directly from the competency framework, and they're in the tool, so you're able to actually do this without the book. You also have a look at the knowledge, skills and behaviors, and they're pretty straightforward yes, no's. So we're not doing indication around these 3 things. But again, you'll see that when it comes to the last one, that's where it all ties together. But if you're saying yes, no to the knowledge, skills and behaviours, you've got to be thinking about the evidence. And again, the evidence for each one of these things, as you do a self-assessment against the competencies, knowledge, skills and behaviours, you'll be thinking about evidence. So your self-assessment is basically 4 areas that you select in what it is that you want to assess yourself against. You reflect, you assess, and then you got the evidence. Pretty straightforward, 4 bits to it. Says it's pretty straightforward. These things take time. So where do you put most of your energy? And I think this is the one where most of us all just think, okay, so it's reflection. But there are some reflection models out there, and we're planning on doing a session early in the next year about self-reflection. But I just wanted to start to just bring it up because it does align obviously with self-assessments here, and there are a number of different tools and frameworks and models to get you thinking, and this is one of the most I suppose one of the most the earlier ones, like 1988, where this is about thinking about your work, and this is about self-reflection and self-reflection approaches and different ways you can think about what it is that you do and how you do it. And generally reflection tends to be done in professions like nursing. They have to do self-reflection as part of their professional development. So it makes sense that, we're professionals too. So we also should be thinking about reflection as more than just, sitting there for a moment and thinking about, oh, what did I do last week? This is about being able to pick out certain things as you go through your daily, weekly, monthly work. And it's about picking out things when they happen that has been something that is kind of out of a norm a little bit, or has been a new thing for you, just something that stands out a little more. And so this can happen at any time, which is why self-assessments are something that you don't just do once a year or every 6 months. It's something that should be triggered by you starting to do something different to the day-to-day. So this is just one reflection cycle. So, it's one that this gets used a lot, which allows you to just think through what it is that you want to reflect on. I mean, I personally like this one more for PMO people, which is the integrated reflective cycle from Bassett. A little bit more, actually 2013, the same year that the second version of the P3O came out. So that feels quite recent. But the reason why I like this one is because of number 3. And I think this is a really nice one for people that are working around PMO, is that it's the looking at what's going on theoretically. And I mean, yeah, okay, there's textbooks and, formal learning and research papers and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's a good one at reminding you that actually when you're doing a new part of your role that's testing you and challenging you, that there is another part to it, which is to actually go and seek out, what is the best practice on this, and how does that compare to my experience and things. So again, we don't want to go too much into reflection at the moment, but I just wanted to just do a little example of how that might work in reality. So I've got one of the things here, which is for a portfolio as a context, and it is for the administrator level. And this is just again, I'm going to do my self-assessment against it, and I think I'm pretty much foundational, intermediate. Yeah, I'm just trying to, I think I'm advanced too. So let's have a look at how some reflection might really work in real life. If you look at facilitating portfolio workshops as an example, and as I said, these are just indicators. There will be other things that you do within your role that you would be classed as being advanced, which you can also include when it comes to do your self-assessment, and that gets picked up in your evidence. But let's have a look at this one. So facilitating portfolio workshops. So I'm thinking about, well, what my experience actually was on this. And I've been doing, portfolio workshops. Upfront preparation was all right, but it didn't go so well. I was losing control of some of the attendees. So there's that bit about, you know, that reflection on, you know, thinking about, you know, why did I think this, and what was happening, and all those who, what, why, where, when questions. First thing here is that actually I was going to go and have a look at what the theory is, what they, you know, what perhaps there's some models or some hints and tips and stuff that's been done around facilitation techniques that are going to help me to do this kind of stuff better in future. And then actually my preparation going forward in the future is that I'm going to think about maybe adding in different exercises that are going to bring people back together again. So just a really quick, really simple example of how using a reflective model or tool like Bassett's can help us really think further and deeper about the experience that we have. So for example, with this one, you'll be able to use this real life experience when it comes to your doing your self-assessment. You'll be able to put this around the evidence that goes into supporting the assessment that you make. So you've got a question from you got the book, you're a bit confused on how to use it. Hopefully Mo, it'll come a little clearer as we go through and do the demo as well. Okay, and a quick question from Susie. What is a portfolio workshop? It's not something you've done before and you're a portfolio manager. Okay, all right, so portfolio workshop on this example. Eileen, I don't know if you're around and can come off mute. You're the SME. What's the portfolio workshop in your?
Well, there could be a number of that we do with portfolio. So we could be facilitating the prioritization of the projects in the workshop. It could even be not prioritizing, actually kind of going through the case studies, the business cases, and making sure we've got a clear understanding of kind of whether they align to the strategy. So there's a number of things that we can do with senior managers in our kind of supporting the portfolio role. So it's not a kind of a one particular thing. There's anything around what might be happening in that at that portfolio level.
Right. We did a session actually the other week about project prioritization, where we touched on that and how the PMO can get involved in supporting senior managers, of which one of them would be running some kind of workshop. Although I seem to remember we wouldn't call it a workshop because senior managers would get turned off by it. But anyway, hey ho. The foibles of PMO, eh? But there you go. So that's you know, just to kind of stress home about you know, doing a self-assessment is very much about doing the self-reflection. So let's have a look at it in a little more detail in terms of how it works when we look at it, and hopefully for Mo, who's got the book, you'll be able to follow along, because it's exactly the same thing. It's just done in a tool online. So we're using a tool that you may or may not be familiar with already, and it's something called Camille. And we use this because they specialize in competency and self-assessments. So it made sense that we would partner up, and allows you to essentially, as members, to access your own self-assessment. So you can do that all online. Essentially, what we're going to show you today is how it works and how it's set up. So again, individual members can go on and do the self-assessment. Corporate members are allowed to set up a structure that includes a manager and their staff. And what you're just seeing there on the right-hand side is just a summary of somebody's self-assessment, which again, I was going to show you when we do the demo. So what I'm going to do is bring up the demo, and hopefully all will become a lot clearer. So just bear with me a second while I get myself sorted. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to share this with you. All right, so oh, that's not good, is it? Just expired. That's how long it's been sitting there. Okay, let me try again. Right, here we go. Right, so when you come on to do a self-assessment, and Bridget, self-assessment's only available to for paid out of PMO members to do this tool online, but you can do a self-assessment using just a book. Okay, So again, we'll show you how, when we go through this, how it equates to the book as well. So when you click on, what you'll see is essentially, this is the homepage. This is somebody called Geraldine. So Geraldine is wanting to do her self-assessment, and essentially what you'll see is, if you click onto My Competency, and Geraldine is a PMO administrator. This is a current role. And if you can see here in the top right, we talked about that there was different levels that you can assess against. So here's a PMO administrator currently. That's what she's currently doing. Career step-wise, she wants PMO analyst at project, thinking I might want to do that later. But also a PMO analyst working at a program level, kind of assess myself somewhere against that. And then aspirationally, got PMO manager as well. She can also do a self-assessment against all of it. And you can do this again, both online and in the book. But let's just look at doing a self-assessment against, against this PMO administrator. And you can see that if it's PMO administrator at a project level. Now, if she was to choose, she can also add in PMO administrator at program level, at portfolio level, whatever she wants to add, so you can add different job profiles here. And that's how we can do that. So you can look at and add in whatever you want to do. So everything that I've just put in there and shown you, these are the different things that she's assessing herself against. When you look at the book, you can do exactly the same thing. Yeah, there's a self-assessment in the back of the book that allows you to do a self-assessment only against current. So there's the added bonus of the wonderful world of technology that allows us to do it against several things. And unfortunately, the book doesn't just cut it. So here, and the core competencies are what are required at a PMO administrator level. And also for a PMO administrator, you're expected to be choosing at least a couple of competencies to score yourself against out of these. Again, works exactly the same within the book. But you'll see that for each one of these, she's already started to do an assessment. And this job level requirement on the tool is actually showing you what is required as a PMO administrator at a project level. So she can see straight away that that is what's expected at that level. So let's have a look at, let's look at the administration, because regardless of what level you are on here, what role you're performing, let's pick something that at least we can all understand, which is PMO administration. And this is the competency in its own right. Now, for this role, you've got to be intermediate. And what we mean is that you have to be competent at this role. You have to be intermediate. Yeah. So what you do, you come onto this, you read through the description, and then you start to have a look at what the indicators are. And what you're doing is reading through the indicators and thinking, yeah, I'm definitely foundation. I do that stuff standing on my head. It's, and I'm looking at the intermediate stuff. I'm definitely there as well, but I'm certainly not at that level yet where I'm doing some, getting involved in process documentation and facilitating stuff. I'm not there yet. So that's why she's putting herself at that intermediate level. So she'll score herself here. And then there's the job level requirement. And then that's it. She does the next one. We look at the overall delivery support one. You read through the things. You think, yeah, okay, I think I'm here, I think I'm there, and so on. So you can see you could do a self-assessment in 30 minutes just by, in fact, you could do it in probably a minute by just running all the way down here and just checking them all off. But if we look at what else is required, it's like, well, for the administration one, you need a bit of evidence. So for here, Geraldine would be expected to be, okay, so for this intermediate one where you talked about, actually, I have got quite a lot of experience about onboarding. We're working in a busy project. I've got lots of people that are starting in the project team all the time, and I've been doing this kind of thing day in, day out. So that would form as an evidence piece that's what you would actually type in there. And from a documentation point of view, you probably upload perhaps some of the documentation that you've created to help that onboarding process. So that's what you're doing. You're assessing, thinking about it, assessing, thinking about the evidence, and then providing that supporting evidence as well. Let's go to a different one, which is more, a competency area. So this one, again, still administration level, still at the project level. These are the indicators you're expected to be at a foundational level to be competent as a PMO administrator working at a project level. So again, you're reading through all the indicators. And again, these are in the book, so you're just reading through them all and thinking, yeah, and probably got something else or one or two things I'd probably add in there, because that's unique to my organization. But I'm definitely, but actually, if I look at the intermediate stuff, I think I'm there too, so I'm going to score myself as intermediate on this one. And I might save that, or I might add my evidence and my documents there. So that's what's happening, for all of the competencies. And then you've got knowledge, which again is just about reading through what is expected. What do we talk about when we're talking about the knowledge required? These are the kind of things, the more information in the book, but if that's enough to see that we're talking about the applications and tools of the organization, do I have that kind of knowledge or not? And it's a very simple yes, no. But again, you can see evidence and documentation are required to back up your thinking. And you do the same for knowledge and the skills and behaviors. Now, what it's doing is for this one, it's a PMO administrator. So it's only showing you the competencies required as a PMO administrator. Let's have a look at, well, what happens if I look at PMO analyst then? So this is the next level up for Geraldine. So what it does, it takes Geraldine's self-assessment that she's done at a PMO admin level in project. It's kept that scoring, but now what it's showing me, these are all the competencies that are required if you're working, or you can see at least 5 from the following, if you're working at a PMO analyst level. So you can see how it opens up, that it's more competencies are given to you. Again, it works in the same way in the book. But again, this is obviously a bit more dynamic. It also opens up more knowledge that's required, more skills, more behaviors. So again, it depends on the role that you're doing that gives you those competencies all laid out there for you. What it also allows you to do is that if you do this assessment, it also allows you to do a comparison to where you are now versus where you were 6 months ago, because it's got this thing called time travel. And it allows you to pick up, when you did assessment and where you've been and how you've moved and how you've progressed. So if we look at a time travel assessment, okay, it's not worked so well here because we've been messing about with it, but you can see that you'll be able to see that there's a development, that I've done this self-assessment back in this time last year. And actually my assessment was saying that I was at foundational level, and actually now I can demonstrate that there's intermediate and advanced. So there is some kind of tool that allows you to do that comparison between where you've come from and where you've where you come from and where you are now. And then if we look even further, we can look at very aspirationally for Geraldine, bearing in mind she's only a PMO administrator at the moment, it will give her all the things that are required for being a PMO manager at a program level. And you can dip into all of these things. And again, you're reading through what the descriptions are and what the foundational, intermediate, advanced and expert indicators would be. Okay, I've been talking for a little bit. So questions wise then, we've got, let me go back. Does a self-assessment involve feedback from senior stakeholders, or do you have to ask recommended questions to ask? You can ask people. Again, it works better for the organizational one, because that is very much about your manager is providing that kind of feedback to your assessment. But with your portfolios, you can with this self-assessment, you can print it out and you can share that. And you can get people to comment on certain aspects, for example. That is probably more aligned with your kind of like your performance evaluation process, where you are asking for feedback. And this can be, certainly you can ask for certain questions to help support and evidence some of your self-assessments for sure. Yeah. it's like I said, you know, when we're looking at the what's required, there's a commitment, and it's a second, it's a communication, you know, because this is your view of the world, and it kind of does need ratifying with other people that you're working with and for. And you know, again, it's just about opening up that conversation, but you are able to print out your self-assessments to be able to share those more widely as well. Is it a tool that can be tailored for your own organization's roles and competencies? Yes, it can, Gillian, but you are generally approaching Camille directly. Camille, you know, more than happy to put you in touch if you're interested. But what we're looking at today is just purely the House of PMO and the PMO Competency Framework. However, the way that Camille works is that you're allowed to add in as many competency frameworks and roles as you want. You know, so there's probably a further question there for Camille. Do you have to do all the levels, or do you just select where you think you are at the moment? You can just do where you are at the moment, Mo. Yeah, absolutely. So you can just, you know, just purely look at that one thing, which for this particular person, they're just going to come in here. They're not going to add any more jobs to it. We're just going to happy to do where they are now. Can the individual share their results? Yeah, absolutely. It can all be printed out. So you can, you know, again, do that as a printable thing or a PDF. Yes, you can do that easily. Okay, so let's have a look at this portfolio, shall we? What I'm talking about in terms of what can be printed out. So what this is showing you is Geraldine's, and you can switch some of these things on and off. I'm just going to go straight down the main thing. So look at this top bit here first. It's just a summary. This is the competency assessment that she's just done for the particular role. And for the core competencies, she's done the self-assessment across the two, and she's done 100% of, you know, the compliance against the job profile. Okay. And again, you can see against all of these where she is in relation to what is recommended to be a competent PMO administrator. So, you know, that gives you that high level. But it also, you can see these are the other roles. There's a career step 1, comparison, a career step 2, the comparison, and that aspirational one, there's that comparison. A very simple spider diagram for this one. Because of the examples that we've shown, but this would give you, the more competencies you do, the more you'll see on your spider diagram. So for this particular one, we can see that actually she's hitting at the moment on the competencies that have been completed, that she's hitting the, you know, the requirements of their core competencies, and even excelling a little in the change control. But again, you know, when you start to do a comparison against some of the other ones, you'll start to see, you know, that the spider diagram starts to become a little bit sadder. But again, it's the more competencies you do, the more your information you'll get back out in your spider diagrams. It'll also show you, these are your knowledge and your skills as well, and your behaviors against each one. It'll also show you very, very quickly, again, where you're scoring against all the requirements around all the, you know, so you can see the full list. And again, you can print all of this stuff out, so you've got it. You don't need to keep coming in a tool to be able to get it. But again, you can see here, this is the requirement for the role, where this grey line is, and you can see that they're hitting it on the 2, as we'd said. These are the 2 that they're not done a competency self-assessment against. That could be that either they're not doing it in their PMO at the moment, which is absolutely fine, and that's the, you know, the reasoning for it not being done, or actually, you know, they've just literally just started out with it and have not got round to doing their scoring. And again, just gives you a real simple visual representations. So this kind of thing can get used, obviously printed, you know, and shared in whichever way that you want. So there's the portfolio. The other thing you can do with this is actually, you know, you should just do it against all of them. So Mo, you were talking about, you've got, sometimes actually you don't want to do it against a role profile. You want to do all of it, and you can do all of it, and you can do your self-assessment against everything on a project context. So for example, you know, we said about you can do a self-assessment for I'm working in a program environment, but I'm doing both a PMO analyst role and a PMO manager role. This is one way you can do it. You can also do it like this, as we've described, where you cut, you pick a current role that is the closest. So you might be a PMO analyst, and then you might have career step one that has that PMO manager in it. You can do it like that, or you can choose to do and pick it off by looking at the whole competency framework. So for example, I'm working in a project context, but I'm working at both project and program levels. So actually I'm going to do a self-assessment here and here. That'll give me and make sure that I'm covering off both contexts. Again, you can do just by looking at the level of role. So if I'm just wanting to look at or browse even, if you're not even working at these roles and you just want to have a read through what the expectations are. So for example, for this one, this is a PMO role, this is a PMO manager. Hold on a sec, let me just get that right. Yeah, so PMO manager role. And I'm wanting to look at the program context for the PMO management stuff. I can just literally hone straight into that stuff. And this is also this stuff. And these are the core competencies that I want to assess against in a program context at a manager level. Yeah, and then I can just do that assessment. And you'll get exactly the same. You're just not going to be able to do a comparison, because you'll notice here in the middle, there isn't that level of role that you're comparing against. So there's a difference between just choosing to do all of it and then just picking off a particular role. So that is a competency self-assessment. So Gillian, yeah, assuming your whole team completed a self-assessment in the tool, there would be a way to view any gaps in development requirements across the team. Absolutely. You get the spider view, which I showed you really briefly in the session so far. And then it allows you to drill down into individuals, so you can then see their individual assessment levels. Yes, absolutely. So from a individual's point of view, the way that this tool gets to be used is, as I said, it's about thinking about not just doing this once a year. The spark for it should be is when you're doing something that's different, something that is stretching you a little, something that's different to the norm. And that's the kind of indicator for you to say, yeah, I think I'm going to come in and have a think about this one and see where this fits within the role. That's why it's a good time to, if you're looking at a particular role. So here we've got Geraldine, she's looking at the PMO administrator one, but actually she's really wanting to move on and step up to being a PMO analyst. And if she's looking at this today, and it's like there's quite a lot that's not being touched on in her role at the moment. So actually, before you start to go down the road of, how do I, get into being a PMO analyst, I want to start doing a little bit more reading around my subject and start trying to understand, because actually there could be things that you are doing that you didn't even know, but that's what it is that you're doing. So this is why, you can buy the book and it's all there, but everything is here also in the tools. If I wanted to know about assurance, it's here. It's telling you, what is in here, what is assurance, and it's giving you some ideas of what demonstrates at that level. So you can use this tool as being something, as an education piece to go away and to do some more thinking around the subject. Or House of PMO members, we've got sessions on assurance. So you think, actually, I know that this is a big requirement for me to be able to move into PMO analyst. I'm going to start doing some self-development around this. And you can do that kind of thing, it's all available in House of PMO. I can see there's a button at the top labeled gap closure. Yeah, I think I'll show you the button. And this is allowing you to set targets. So this works better with the corporate membership where you've got teams, because what your manager can do is set some targets as well. Yeah, so we're doing a job level requirement, which is you're doing the assessment against the PMO Competency Framework role profiles of admin, analyst, manager, and director. This target level one, it can be set by managers to do, something that might be more realistic to that particular organization, or the other way could be that actually within our organization the level of requirement for this is actually expert. So, you know, again, it allows you to have some of that flexibility from a corporate membership. And the learning tab is very much I love how this is like, what's in there? In here is going to be the next level of where we go with it. So what will be happening here? Let me go back to a competency and I'll show you exactly how it will be working. So this is one of the next pieces of work for House of PMO. If you look at the administration one, you can see the learning tab here. Yeah, what's going to be here is showing you where all the recommended learning might be. So I've just said to you that, you know, I need to know a little bit more about assurance, and we've got some sessions on assurance that you could look at. They're all going to be in there, and you're going to be able to see, you know, what they are and how you can get hold of them. So that's the next level for us. And then what it allows you to do is you'll be able to choose which learning you want to do. And that's what will start to appear in My Learning. So that's the next level. Yeah. So any other questions that I can see while I'm here? Got 5 minutes left. Is it asked you to do your self-assessment? Has it delivered what we said we would try and cover today? Just let me know whether it's not hit the mark, or you want more, or you know, what we're trying to do with our self-assessment type sessions is do more of them throughout the year to do pick on different aspects. So if you've got any other things you want to bring in or see, do let us know. What I'm going to do is just stop sharing that for a second and just let you have a quick look at the last couple of bits. So we do already have some help and guidance on looking at the self-assessments. We do have a lot of, you know, user guides, you know, how to get started. We go through these demos a little bit more detail. We'll look at different roles. You know, we can help you know, do with a corporate membership. What we do is come in and help the teams get started, and you know, lots of support from us in order to be able to get people using these, understand them. But a lot of people have never really done a self-assessment before. It can look a little bit like, you know, I'm not quite sure, but you know, hopefully we're giving you that starter, and hopefully, you know, gives you that, yes, we these kind of things, it's the reflection and it's the thinking that goes on, but hopefully it's giving you some a little push to think, yeah, you need to think about how I incorporate this into my day-to-day, but also perhaps your team as well. So there is some advice and guidance there. So that's it for this session. There will be another one coming up around self-assessments. We can try and plan to do one once a quarter. There is already stuff available. Please do have a think about becoming a House of PMO member. You can get access to this and obviously more, including that kind of self-development learning from all the sessions that we do, and all the sessions that we do aligned to the different aspects of the competency framework. So it's all, you know, neatly tied up together. So before we go, there is more stuff coming. So again, you know, for members only, we have a careers hour session, which we run just for members. And this time it is about interviewing PMO people. And that one coming up 17th. The day after, another one that's open to everybody, a free session. This is the top 5 things that make a great PMO analyst. So if you're working as an analyst, or if you're like Geraldine, you want to become an analyst, it's a good one for you to check out. We did the last session on PMO administrators, and that's available on our website if you want to go and have a look at that one. We are back face to face. Please do come and have a look at us in the flesh. We're back to in person. This is what we used to do before the pandemic. So we're back out there again. 23rd of November is that one in London. And if you've not checked out our other free sessions monthly, PMO Working From Home is our eclectic mix of everything that's been going on in PMO over the last month. Nice little magazine show on a Friday. Those are the ones that are coming up. So lots of things for you to get your teeth into. Please do check us out, and hopefully we'll see you soon at another session. Yeah. So I think that's it question wise. Thanks very much, everybody. You take care, and you know where we are. Any questions, get in touch. Make sure you join the House of PMO LinkedIn group too. You know where to find us. We're more than happy to try and help you. Okay, take care, everybody. Have a nice rest of your day. Bye.